We're just weeks away now from the launch of the Galaxy S20 series, and there isn't much we don't know about these phones, thanks to even more leaks than we usually get for the Pixel phones. But there's something quite unique about the cameras on the Galaxy S20 series. Even though the Ultra uses different hardware than the other two, the concept is still the same. Samsung in recent years have been struggling a little bit to keep up with Huawei in terms of the hardware options that they've been bringing in their phones. For example, Huawei use a really big main camera sensor, and recently they added 5x optical zoom in their phone, and that's something that Samsung have never offered. Well, that has definitely been fixed in the Galaxy S20 series, and Samsung have blown the doors off their previous strategy of keeping things quite subdued and are giving some crazy specs in the cameras like 108 megapixel sensors, 5x optical zoom, and all of the phones pretty much getting brand new setups across the board. But even with the leaked specs, the Ultra having a 5x zoom and the other two, that's the S20 and the S20 Plus, having 3x zoom, there remains a problem. Huawei, according to leaks anyway, are using 10 times optical zoom in the top-end Huawei P40 phone. But Samsung are using a different approach to Huawei, not using a 10x optical unit, but in a really unique and new approach. They are using high megapixel image sensors underneath their zoom cameras. Whereas Huawei are using a 10 times optical setup with an 8 megapixel image sensor, which we know because of the optics inside will produce absolute clear 10x lossless zoom. Samsung will combat this using a 5x optical zoom setup, but with much higher megapixel and higher resolution images. Without pixel binning on the S20 Ultra, you're getting 64 megapixel images from that camera, and on the S20 and S20 Plus, 48 megapixel images from their zoom cameras. That means you can zoom or crop in on the images quite a considerable amount without losing too much detail, which essentially gives exactly the same effect as a longer optical zoom. Even using 4:1 pixel binning on these cameras, which they will be doing, you still get 16 megapixel and 12 megapixel images, which is a higher resolution than the images we'll be getting from the Huawei phones. It's not that simple though, and the two approaches do not give the same results. It's always preferable to have an optical solution, that is using a lens to get the zoom, because this offers a load of other benefits too. For example, natural depth of field and background blur, and it also has the effect of making the subject stand out from the background, blurring the background and just giving an overall very pleasing look, much like you get from more professional DSLR cameras with very big, expensive lenses. But Samsung will argue that all of this can also be done with software, and that having higher resolution images means that you can edit them to a greater extent whilst keeping the same sort of look. They can of course use their live focus feature, which they introduced a while ago now and is getting better and better with every iteration. Samsung will look to promote the S20 Ultra as having a 100 times zoom range from the ultra wide to the longest zoom, which is insane. But I think most of us just want really good looking images from the ultra wide up to about 20 times zoom. That will give most of us way more than we would ever need anyway. The S20 and S20 Plus are sticking with 10 megapixel selfie cameras, but the Ultra is keeping in insane mode on that camera and giving us a 40 megapixel selfie camera. That will, I assume, also be pixel bin 4:1, giving 10 megapixel images as standard. Samsung have definitely gone all out in the specs race this year, and we wait for the real device to see just how good or bad it is. And subscribe if you want to see the camera test versus the Huawei, because that is definitely happening. Subscribe for all the latest tech news and tech videos. That's it for now, but I'll see you in the next one.